Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. Pretty obvious Democrats are miscalculating, and I'll tell you why. Another court win for Doge, and I'm calling BS on a very important story next on the AM Update.
Where's the money being spent, right? $520 million for ESG.
Over an 8-year period, the Social Security Administration made almost $72 billion in improper payments.
The federal government will find every illegal alien who is stealing American taxpayer dollars. And that is what Americans expect to happen.
Look, she's the dumbest congresswoman ever elected to Congress.
Just in a few months, President Trump has shifted the entire global conversation from not if the war is going to end, but just how it's going to end.
Donald Trump held a press conference at Mar-a-Lago in Florida yesterday where he outlined just a few more items that the Department of Government Efficiency has been finding as part of their efforts to uncover waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. It's incredible just how many things they continue to find.
That's just that. And then, where's the money being spent, right? Let's go into that for just a second. $520 million for a consultant on the environment. It's called Environmental, Social, and Governance. Investments in Africa and mobilize private sector resources. $520 million. Somebody got $520 million for an environmental, sounds like an environmental study. I've always been one that paid a lot of money for my environmental studies. But
that clip goes on for another 4 minutes. 4 minutes at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump outlining just another laundry list full of items of waste, fraud, and abuse. I think it's pretty clear that Democrats are making a miscalculation. I'll get to that in just a couple of moments. Donald Trump signed an executive order expanding so-called rights to in vitro fertilization. Not a big fan of that, but Donald Trump did campaign on that, so it's not like it's a huge surprise. And the aforementioned press conference was a part of that signing ceremony. The Department of Government Efficiency got a huge court win yesterday as Judge Tanya Chutkan shut down 14 Democratic attorneys general in their bid to block Doge from slashing waste at 7 federal agencies: Department of Labor, Department of Education, Health and Human Services, Department of Energy, Department of Transportation, Commerce, and the Office of Personnel Management. So Donald Trump and Doge getting big win after big win. So why are Democrats miscalculating? Well, even their biggest mouthpiece, MSNBC, was forced to make this admission just yesterday.
There was an Inspector General audit last year that showed over an 8-year period, the Social Security Administration made almost $72 billion in improper payments, a little less than 1% of payments in that time period. Now, the report also says that most of these improper payments were overpayments, not payments to deceased people or people who didn't qualify to receive these payments. At the same time, Jose, this effort by Doge is to go through this agency like every other and try to weed out waste and fraud.
So even MSNBC has to admit that the mission of Doge is, at least on some level, warranted and needed. So they have picked and miscalculated a wrong fight here, because it was already very popular amongst the general population to cut government as much as possible, to cut fraud and abuse. Like I said yesterday, that's just been a talking point for my entire life as far as Republicans are concerned. But yet the Democrats have made Elon Musk and Doge their public enemy number one. And even their mouthpiece now in the media, the MSNBC cabal of just raging lefties, they're now forced to admit that, at least in the Social Security Administration, there's a lot of rampant fraud going on there. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller put on yet another masterclass on dealing with the media. Here he is on CNN being talked down to by Brianna Keeler.
You mentioned yesterday, and you mentioned again here, illegal immigrants who are getting child tax credits. Are you looking for that information in the IRS data?
Anytime a crime is committed, of course there should be an investigation. Is it your position that if somebody who is
Stephen,
here
are you looking for that information in the IRS data?
The federal government will find every illegal alien who is stealing American taxpayer dollars. And that is what Americans expect to happen.
Will you find that in the IRS
I don't
data
even
and
fathom
share that
the premise
with law
of your
enforcement?
question.
It's a simple question. Will you
Anyone
find that
who's-
information in the IRS data and share that with law enforcement?
If IRS investigators find illegal aliens stealing taxpayer money, of course they'll be referred to ICE. Of course they'll be referred to Homeland Security investigations.
Just the latest example of what I was talking about yesterday. It seems like with unanimity, all of Donald Trump's picks, whether they are cabinet-level confirmations or just staff at the White House like Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff, it seems like they are all treating the media with the scorn and derision that they deserve. And crucially, you heard him say that explicitly there. Stephen Miller said, "I cannot believe the premise of your question." Yes, that is how you deal with Marxists. Every single barb, every single arrow they throw at you, you completely disregard the premise of that question because their premise is always going to be flawed to just straight up duplicitous. Speaking of duplicitous, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in recent days engaged in a webinar aimed at illegal aliens, telling them how they can avoid ICE detention and deportation. Tom Homan, border czar, had this to say on Newsmax.
Look, she's the dumbest congresswoman ever elected to Congress, and she proves that every day. And look, bottom line is, I can't believe any member of Congress, Republican, Democrat, Independent, would want to educate criminal illegal aliens who are in the country illegally, been convicted of a violent crime, and have been ordered removed by an immigration judge after due process at great taxpayer expense. You got a congressman or congresswoman that does not want ICE to do the job that Congress has mandated them to do and funds them to do.
That is border czar Tom Homan smacking Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for her webinar instructing illegal aliens how to avoid ICE detention. Foreign policy. This is Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, talking about the conflict in Ukraine and just how much the state of play has changed in a few short weeks.
What the president did not find acceptable was an endless war in Europe that was literally has turned into a meat grinder of people on both sides. So if you just think about just in a few months, President Trump has shifted the entire global conversation from not if the war is going to end, but just how it's going to end. And only President Trump can do that. And in the Oval Office less than a week ago, both President Putin and President Zelensky both said to him, only you, President Trump, could drive this war to a conclusion.
National Security Advisor Mike Waltz on just how much the state of play has changed when it comes to the Russian and Ukrainian conflict. And it is true. I mean, just a few short months ago, and really to this day, it just seemed, again, you heard him use the term meat grinder there. That is exactly what this was. It was basically a stalemate, but a stalemate that just so happened to be costing the lives of countless both Russian and Ukrainian. So hopefully this conflict will be over sooner than later. The only people, really, this has been true for the last 3 years, the only people who this has really benefited are national defense and the aerospace and defense industry contractors. That's really all that has been benefited through this. So I don't really understand what the advantage, if you are Ukrainian or a Russian, is to having this conflict just continue on into perpetuity. All right, when we come back, it sounds like Pope Francis is a little worse for the wear, to say the least. A leader of a cult was arrested and is being held without bail. And you'll never guess who's being tapped to play Jesus Christ in Jesus Christ Superstar in Los Angeles. That's coming up next.
He's going to go into orbit soon.
Okay, yeah.
No, he's going to go to Mars. He's
Starlink at some point. Yeah. Is it but they must ask me, like, do you want to die on Mars? And I say, well, yes, but not on impact.
Starlink is in 100 countries. This is going to be...
That is part of Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Elon Musk's joint interview last night with Sean Hannity, where the duo discussed what they are actually doing and working together towards within the federal government, proving once again the media and Democrat industrial complex's ongoing efforts to drive a wedge between the duo are failing, as the two of them shared several laughs during that interview. In other news, Pope Francis has been diagnosed with bilateral pneumonia in both lungs, but was in a good mood, according to the Vatican in a statement on Tuesday. Lab tests and chest x-rays continue to reveal a complex medical picture. Vatican said in a statement, quote, "The polymicrobial infection which arose on a picture of bronchiectasis and asthmatiform bronchitis and which required the use of antibiotic cortisone therapy make the therapeutic treatment more complex. The chest CT scan that the Holy Father underwent this afternoon demonstrated the onset of bilateral pneumonia that required further pharmacological therapy." The statement said the 88-year-old pontiff was in a good mood and received the Eucharist earlier on Tuesday morning. So yes, he's probably got access to some of the best, if not the best, medical care in the world, being the leader of the largest church in Christendom, the Catholic Church. But if we were talking about any other 88-year-old with bilateral pneumonia, we'd probably be saying he's on his last legs. Obviously, we hope for a full recovery for the guy. I'm not the type of guy that I have any particular affinity for the Pope. That's why I'm not a Catholic. One of the reasons I'm not a Catholic. But I've always said the entire world of Christendom, the entire whole of Western civilization would be better off with a stronger, more consistently bold Pope presiding over that church. It looks as if maybe the time that we might have a chance to see that come to fruition, it could be approaching. The Maryland State Police reported Monday that police arrested 34-year-old named Jack LaSoda, the alleged leader of a transgender murder cult linked in the killing of a Border Patrol agent in Vermont. LaSoda, a boy, claims to identify as a woman and goes by Ziz and Andrea Phelps. The dangerous group refers to itself as the Zizians. The post-millennials Andy No previously reported that LaSoda's followers claimed that he died in 2022, even creating a fake obituary. No speculated that the hoax was an attempt to shield LaSoda, who had a warrant out for his arrest in Pennsylvania, from authorities. A source claimed that LaSoda was alive and had been living with other Zizians in an Airbnb in North Carolina since 2023. Michelle Zacchio and Daniel Blank were also arrested Sunday with LaSoda. According to Maryland State Police, the detainees are facing multiple charges, including trespassing, obstructing and hindering, and possession of a handgun in a vehicle. The Zizians have been linked to several killings, including that of a 44-year-old named David Mayland, Border Patrol agent who was shot in the line of duty back in January. The charges against LaSoda, Zacchio, and Blank are not related to Mayland's murder. Teresa Milo Youngblood, 21, another Zizian member, is accused of fatally shooting the Border Patrol agent. We talked about that story just a couple of weeks ago. So there is obviously a lot more thread to pull here. The leader of this transgender death cult, which, I'm sorry for the redundancy, and that's kind of what transgenderism is anyway, now being arrested and held without bail in Maryland. The chances of an asteroid as large as the width of an NFL field striking Earth continue to tick up, according to NASA. The recently discovered asteroid 2024 YR4 now has a 2.6% probability of impact, or 1 in 38 chance. That's up from a 1.9% probability following an initial 1% chance in late January. On the flip side, this means that there is more than a 97% chance the asteroid will whiz past Earth. The celestial body is estimated between 130 and 300 feet wide and is expected to swing close to Earth on December 22nd, 2032. The width of an NFL field from sideline to sideline is approximately 160 feet, so that's about, it's approximately 160 feet, so this is at the low end a little bit smaller than the width of an NFL field. The odds of a strike will almost certainly continue to go up and down as the asteroid's path around the sun is better understood, and astronomers said there's a good chance the risk may drop to zero. So, I guess if you're on the political left right now and you are really down and out about the state of play, you keep on posting L's, it seems like, right and left. You have a 2.6, okay, look on the bright side. You've got a 2.6% chance of having something to look forward to in the year 2032. Cynthia Erivo is set to play Jesus Christ this summer in a production of Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice's Jesus Christ Superstar at the Hollywood Bowl. Erivo shared the news on Instagram and wrote, quote, "Just a little busy this summer. I can't wait. She's no stranger to the show, having starred as Mary Magdalene in an all-female version of the musical in 2020 and sung the popular number, I Don't Know How to Love Him." So who is Cynthia Erivo? Why is she being cast as Jesus Christ in this sacrilegious, some say, musical? Well, she, of course, is a black and so-called queer woman. Now, of course they're doing this to offend the sensibilities of those who actually claim the name of Jesus Christ. That's why they're doing this, of course, but let me get this straight. You're trying to offend Christians by casting a black queer woman in the role of a man who is hung on a cross. You're going to hang a black queer woman on a cross, and this is some sort of own. Not that we want to see black women hung on a cross, but that's like, if black women are not at the top of the intersectionality totem pole, they're at least top 3, and you're going to cast one of those in a role like this? Come on now. And now here's this. You may have heard of Jubilee. It's some sort of media group where this is really what happens. It's basically 90% to a circle jerk. A bunch of libs sit around in a circle. They bring in a conservative, and they choose one of their own to debate this conservative. And they all feel very good about themselves as the liberal, generally speaking, tries to talk over and talk down to the conservative at the debate table. Well, Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire engaged in one of these debates, this time on transgenderism, with somebody whose name I've never seen before, and I don't even know how he got this gig, debating Michael Knowles. So here is Knowles' appearance on the Jubilee channel, debating transgenderism with a very feisty lib.
You said you argued from an anthropology? That's like your basis of...
Yeah, men and women are different, and marriage involves one of each. Yeah.
What specific culture are you referring to? Because we have so many cultures that have communal relationships in which people are raised. When you said in the act of procreation, have you ever heard of it takes a village to raise kids? That's not something that's just a saying.
No, I didn't say
it happens literally in specific cultures.
But when I say procreation, that's the act of creating the child. And usually there aren't 3 or 4 people involved in that. It's usually 2 people.
Yeah, but even those people that do create the child, oftentimes were referred to as different genders depending on the culture that it is that you're observing.
Which cultures are you referring to?
We could talk about the Mayans. We could talk about certain Amazonian cultures. Well, I recognize that they're not Western cultures, so you might not prioritize them, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist.
What was their... Well, they no longer exist, the Mayans.
Oh, right, because of colonialism. I'm glad that you're justifying it, though.
What was their view of gender? What specifically are you referring to?
That's specifically a social characteristic that we're all performing in right now. I mean, you can't say...
No, I'm not asking your opinion. I'm asking what... You brought up the Mayans. What did the Mayans think?
That's just something that is...
But what did the Mayans think? You brought it up. You seem so confident about this. What did the Mayans think about marriage and gender?
We can talk about difference in the way that they are recognized.
Can we? I don't know that you know the difference. You said there was a difference, but you haven't explained how there was a difference. And I think this is what people do a lot.
Wait, is this prompt specifically on the Mayan anthropology?
Okay, I'm trying to drill down. When you say there are different understandings of marriage throughout history and time and space, I say, okay, maybe that's possible. How? Tell me. Point to the examples. And you said, well, the Mayans. And I said, okay, well, what did the Mayans think about marriage? And you don't have an answer. And none of these people have answers because everyone has... Do you have an answer?
People can look up right now. If you're right near a Google... Yeah, exactly. Right. Michael's trying to hone me down on trivia night right now.
No, I'm just asking you to explain...
We're trying to talk about specifically our examples
I'm asking you to explain the point that you brought up.
I think the most important and impressive thing that you just heard there is not the fact that Michael Knowles completely unraveled this lefty trying to support the idea of transgenderism by arguing that we've had different understandings of marriage and gender throughout different cultures all through antiquity. I think that's very impressive in and of itself. What's most impressive there, however, put yourself in Michael Knowles' shoes. Put yourself in his shoes. You're sitting across the table from a very combative, dismissive, and arrogant lefty who is talking down to you. And if you've listened to 2 to 5 minutes of Michael Knowles, you'll know that probably amongst all conservatives with a media platform, Michael Knowles is a top 3 intellect. He is. That's very apparent. So anyway, you're talking to this and debating this lefty who is condescending, arrogant, talking down to you, not really supporting his arguments, as you just heard there, with any form of fact. The most impressive thing from Michael Knowles is that he kept his cool. If he would have lost his mind by chasing any little thread there, especially the little couple of jabs about colonialism that lefty threw in there. Oh yeah, thank you for admitting that you're supportive of colonialism. If he would have gone and chased any one of those, we would have never seen this through to the very end. where the lefty debater there just completely wilts. Hey, can somebody look up my argument for me? That's what he said. Hey, anybody can look up. Can you please help me? It's incredible. So again, you saw there another important thing. If you're having a debate, especially on first things like what's a man and what's a woman, remember, what did Michael Knowles do there? He asked questions. Hey, let's just see. What did the Mayans believe about marriage and gender? What did they believe about gender? Let's just ask that question. Remember, ask questions. They will completely unravel and fall apart. Now, let's just say 99% of the time, it works every time. All right, when we come back, I'm calling BS on a very important story. That's coming up next. And finally, air analysis. One of the biggest serial killer mysteries of all time, the identity of Jack the Ripper, has finally been solved, according to a British researcher who's now seeking legal confirmation on behalf of a victim's family. Over a century after he murdered and mutilated London women in 1888, the long mythologized killer's identity has allegedly been confirmed by DNA found on a shawl. It's according to historian Russell Edwards. Edwards claimed that Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber who was 23 at the time of the murders, is the Ripper, based on what he said. And it's a 100% match with DNA found on the attire piece. Again, this is according to historian Russell Edwards, talking to Today Australia in a February 1st interview. Kosminski was a suspect in the original investigation, but was never arrested. So, Jack the Ripper, Aaron Kosminski. I'm calling complete and total BS. Let me ask Grok right now, in real time. What are the most stereotypical and common first names of serial killers? Let's see what Grok comes up with. I'm calling BS. John, David, Richard, Ted, Jeffrey, Ed, Charles, Robert. Serial killers are not named Aaron. I like my name, by the way, but that's a terrible serial killer name. You gotta be named something like Ted, David, even Timothy. John Wayne Gacy. Aaron is not a serial killer's name. It's just not. So for that reason alone, I'm calling BS on this entire story. No, Jack the Ripper's true identity remains an enigma. Because it just can't be that Jack the Ripper, one of the most mythologized, probably most mythologized serial killers in Western civilization over the past 150 years, there's no way that his name is Aaron. And I'm not trying to defend myself here. Like I said, I like my name. I know I have enough self-awareness to admit that my name is not a serial killer name. Of course, that's exactly what somebody who's a serial killer might want you to think. More again tomorrow. Remember, vote in the poll of the week. You can find that pinned at the top of my X profile at RealAMUpdate. I asked you what the biggest threat is to the early second Trump administration. Vote in that poll over at RealAMUpdate on X. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.